Asian migrants held in solitary unless they agree to be sent to Libya. Yeah, Libya. Put it up for a mask. This administration is like an SNL skit come to life. Asian migrants have been thrown into solitary unless they accept deportation to Libya, according to a new lawsuit. The Trump administration is moving to deport Asian nationals, including Cambodians, those from the Philippines, Vietnam, and sending them to Libya. A new legal complaint filed in the Massachusetts federal court has alleged the migrants have no ties to the country, which is notorious for human rights abuses. And detainees who refuse to sign the paperwork authorizing it are being thrown in solitary confinement, the lawsuit alleges. Realize how illegal this is? Realize how insane this is. To those who voted for Trump, I don't recall you voted for this. I don't recall you saying you wanted this. I don't recall anyone campaigning on this specific form of torture and corruption. It's the latest in a long string of allegations in court that the Trump administration is bypassing due process for huge groups of people, officials summarily deemed to be in the country illegally, and at times ignoring federal judges' orders to stop. We've said this before on Indisputable. They are getting ready for a showdown with the judicial branch, the co-equal branch of government. And now the showdown is here. Are the judges going to have the fortitude to enforce the Constitution? Or will they simply allow the administration to continue to violate these orders? Hell, they arrested a federal judge just days ago, claiming the federal judge assisted an undocumented individual or individual ICE was running after in aiding and abetting their escape. It was insane, ridiculous. But they did it. Looks as if they're going to get away with it. Unless or until the judiciary, unless or until they stand up against the tyrant. There's more. Quote, this motion should not even be required as it blatantly defies this court's preliminary injunctions to remove class members without proper notice, a reasonable fear screening, and a 15-day opportunity to submit a motion to reopen after any negative, reasonable fear determination. Wrote the motion for a temporary restraining order. However, multiple credible sources report that flights are preparing to immediately depart the United States carrying class members for removal to Libya. End quote. Quote, this motion allows class counsel receiving multiple reports that class members and their immigration counsel have not received the required protections provided by this court's preliminary injunction, the complaint continued. Specifically, they have not been provided, 1, notice of third country removal in their own language. 2, notice of the opportunity to request and obtain a reasonable fear screening. 3, notification of the results of any reasonable fear screening. And 4, a 15-day window in which to file a motion to reopen the immigration court if there is a negative reasonable fear determination. And worse still, the motion alleged immigration and customs enforcement officers are throwing detainees in the hole if they don't fill out paperwork agreeing to be removed to Libya. cruel and unusual, right? There's more. Quote, the reports with respect to the imminent removal to Libya show inter Aliya Philippine, Vietnamese, Laotian class members being set for removal without any reasonable fear screening, let alone a 15-day window to file a motion to reopen with the immigration court to contest any negative, reasonable fear determination. I have more here. What is a fear determination? Exactly what it sounds like. So it's a coercion dynamic. It's for the court to be able to analyze that part of the agreement, if there's an agreement at all. An agreement cannot be forced. An agreement cannot be forced by the government. Contracts, just a basic contract, cannot be enforceable under duress. So what agreement has happened? None. If it's done under duress, it's not enforceable anyway. So it doesn't matter that there's a signature if it's done through coercion. In one report, in one reported case, U.S. Immigration and Customs officers, ICE, officers at the South Texas detention facility gathered one Vietnamese detainee along with 5 others, including one from Laos, into a room and told them that they needed to sign a document agreeing to be deported to Libya. When they all refused, they were each put in a separate room and cuffed in basically solitary in order to get them to sign it. Now, shortly after this motion was filed, noted American Immigration Council attorney Aaron Melnick, District Judge Brian Murphy issued an order telling ICE that any efforts to deport non-Libyans to Libya without giving them an opportunity to object and raise a fear of torture would clearly violate this court's order. He's putting ICE on notice that it would be completely against the law. We shall see what the response is. Thoughts?
Yeah, I just don't understand why these Asians wouldn't just be sent back to Asia. Like, why are they going to Africa? What are we doing? Why are we doing all of this? Politically, this is silly, right? The Trump administration is doing everything they're doing because they believe their base wants to see more deportations. Well, first of all, they're not deporting more than the previous administration yet. And part of the reason for that could be that deportations, when done properly, are done with due process, and they take time and they take resources to execute. So in an effort for this administration to ramp up its deportation numbers, they're flouting the law of the land. They're bypassing due process. They're making deals with nations that are run by self-described dictators, and they're deporting American citizens in some cases. And as you pointed out, this is illegal, and the courts have already said so. Trump is fighting the courts, pinning the executive against the judicial. But not only that, Trump's own supporters do not support any of this. The most right-wing people are saying, we did not ask for this. There is no due process. And whether or not you think people are guilty or innocent, or if you think they deserve to be deported to El Salvador or Libya because they have a tattoo of Marvin the Martian, the fact is that none of that matters. We don't know if they're guilty or innocent because there was never a trial to determine whether they were guilty or innocent. And that's what this comes down to. And as you said, all of this really is about coercion. And this administration, and it usually comes from Trump's own mouth, loves to play with semantics, both when it comes to legal matters and when it comes to the propaganda it feeds to its MAGA supporters, who understand that they're supposed to support this administration because Trump is protecting them all from the big scary people. And in this case, it is the scary Asian people who are now in solitary confinement unless they agree to go to Libya.
That's right. And while many will say, well, this does erode at free speech, this does erode at due process, all of these violations, it's bigger than that. You see, it erodes the Constitution, the document that gives you these particular rights. And if they can successfully erode the Constitution, they can erode your free speech. They can erode your due process because they were able to nullify the Constitution at large. That's the bigger picture. And that's the part very few are willing to say among the ranks of Trump and MAGA.